The car screeched to a stop just inches from her frail body. Gelani's hands were shaking on the wheel, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had swerved hard, tires burning against asphalt, narrowly missing the old woman who had stumbled directly into the path of Obina Cole's gleaming black Range Rover. For one terrifying second, the world had gone silent except for the scream lodged in his throat. "Are you crazy? You want to kill somebody?" Gelani shouted, jumping out of the driver's seat before the engine had even settled. The old woman lay crumpled on the ground, her thin frame trembling, her eyes wide with hunger and confusion rather than fear of the near accident. She hadn't even flinched at death. She had simply been trying to reach a trash bin for scraps. "Ma, are you hurt?" "Talk to me," Gelani said, kneeling beside her, his voice softening instantly. I haven't eaten in 3 days, my son," she whispered, her lips cracked, her voice barely audible. "I saw food in that bin and I could not stop myself." Something inside Gelani's chest cracked open. He didn't think. He didn't calculate. He reached into the passenger seat, grabbed the lunch his sister Ifioma had packed for him that morning, jollof rice, fried plantain, a boiled egg wrapped carefully in foil, and placed it gently into the old woman's trembling hands. "Eat, Ma. Please." "Eat slowly," he said. She stared at the food like it was gold, then looked up at him with eyes that seemed to carry decades of sorrow. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" she asked. "Because nobody should be this hungry in a world with so much food," Gelani answered simply. "My name is Gelani. What's yours?" "They call me Mama Adana," she said. "But nobody has asked my name in years." She took his hand in both of hers, her grip surprisingly firm for someone so frail. "The kindness you gave me today will return to you when you need it most," she whispered. "Mark my words, son. Kindness like yours does not go unanswered." Gelani smiled, thinking it was simply the gratitude of a desperate woman. He had no idea those words would soon detonate his entire life. Because standing at the tinted window of that same Range Rover, watching everything from behind reflective glass, was his boss, billionaire CEO Obina Cole. And Obina was not smiling. "Get back in the car," Obina snapped the moment Gelani returned to his seat. His voice was cold, clipped, dripping with contempt. "Sir, I'm sorry, I just couldn't drive past her like that. She was starving. You gave away company time to feed a beggar on a public street, in front of my vehicle, where anyone with a camera could have photographed it," Obina said, his jaw tight. "Do you understand what image means to a company like Sterling Horizon? Do you understand what people like her represent to my brand? She's a human being, sir. Not a stain on your brand." Obina's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Drop me at the office and clear your locker before security escorts you out." Gelani's stomach dropped. "Sir, please, I have a sick sister at home. I need this job. You should have thought about that before turning my car into a charity stunt," Obina said flatly. "Move." The drive back to Sterling Horizon Group's headquarters was the longest 20 minutes of Gelani's life. Every red light felt like an executioner's pause. When they finally arrived, security was already waiting, 2 burly men flanking the entrance as though Gelani were a criminal rather than a driver who had shown compassion. "Sir, please, I've worked here 3 years. I've never been late, never." 3 years of loyalty means nothing next to 1 moment of stupidity, Obina said, not even turning to look at him as he strode into the building. "Consider yourself lucky I'm not pressing charges for reckless driving." Gelani stood on the pavement, humiliated in front of dozens of employees filing in for the morning shift, whispers rippling through the crowd. He looked back toward the street where Mama Adana had been sitting. She was gone. Security had chased her off the property minutes earlier, as if her presence alone were contagious. Gelani walked home that day with nothing but the weight of his own dignity, and somehow, that felt like it should be enough. It wasn't. 3 days. That's how long it took for Gelani's entire world to collapse. He went to 5 different companies seeking driver positions. Every single one turned him away. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gelani, but we received a call from Sterling Horizon. They said you were dismissed for theft and reckless endangerment," one hiring manager told him, refusing to meet his eyes. "That's a lie. I was fired for feeding a hungry old woman. I believe you sincerely, I do. But I can't risk hiring someone flagged by a company as powerful as Sterling Horizon. I'm sorry. Door after door closed. Obina hadn't just fired him, he had systematically destroyed his name across the entire city, terrified that any hint of scandal near his brand could spread. At home, things grew worse. Ifioma, his younger sister, developed a high fever that wouldn't break. Gelani carried her to the community clinic, his pockets nearly empty. She needs medication for infection and possibly hospitalization if the fever doesn't drop by tonight, said Nurse Suri, checking Ifioma's temperature with visible concern. I don't have enough money right now, but I promise I will pay you back every single naira, Gelani said, his voice cracking with desperation. Suri studied him for a long moment. Something about his eyes, exhausted, but not dishonest, moved her. I'll cover the first round of medication myself, she said. But you need to find work soon, Gelani. Your sister needs stability. Thank you. I don't know how to repay this kindness. You don't repay kindness, you pass it forward, Suri said with a small smile. Isn't that what you did for that old woman everyone's been talking about? Gelani froze. You heard about that? The whole neighborhood has. Some people call you a fool. Others call you a hero. I know which one I believe. Despite everything crashing down around him, Gelani still found Mama Adana most evenings, sharing whatever scraps of food he could scrape together, sitting beside her on broken pavement as the city rushed past them, indifferent. Why do you keep coming back to me, when I've cost you everything? She asked him one evening, her voice heavy with guilt. You didn't cost me anything, Ma. A cruel man's pride cost me everything. You gave me a chance to be human. I won't abandon you now. Mama Adana's eyes glistened. There is something I must give you. Something I have carried for a very long time. Promise me you will protect it, even if people threaten you for it. She pulled a worn, sealed envelope from beneath her tattered shawl and pressed it into his hands. What is this? Gelani asked, turning it over. The truth, she said. A truth that powerful men have spent a fortune trying to bury. That same week, a stranger began asking questions around the neighborhood, a sharply dressed lawyer named Kofi Mensah, searching for an elderly woman matching Mama Adana's description. I've been searching for this woman for almost 2 years, Kofi told Gelani when they finally crossed paths outside the clinic. There's an inheritance case, a family secret buried decades ago. I believe she holds the final piece of it. What kind of secret? Gelani asked cautiously. The kind that could destroy one of the most powerful families in this city, Kofi said. Has she given you anything? A letter, a document? Gelani hesitated, gripping the envelope tighter in his jacket pocket. Why should I trust you? Because if you don't, the people hunting for that envelope will find it first, and they won't ask nicely. He wasn't lying. That very night, 2 men broke into the small apartment Gelani shared with Ifioma, ransacking drawers, flipping furniture, searching for something specific. Where is it? One of them growled, grabbing Gelani by the collar. The old woman's letter. Hand it over now. I don't know what you're talking about. Gelani shouted, shoving the man back. A struggle broke out. Gelani managed to escape through the back window, envelope clutched against his chest, running through darkened streets with his heart exploding in his chest, sirens wailing somewhere in the distance. He didn't stop running until he collapsed into Kofi's office, gasping for breath. They're already after it, Gelani said between ragged breaths. Who sent them? Kofi's expression darkened. A man named Victor Shaw, Obina Cole's business partner. He's been embezzling from Sterling Horizon for over a decade, and that envelope contains records that could expose everything: bank transfers, falsified documents, and something far more personal. Personal how? Kofi opened an old file on his desk, sliding a faded photograph across the table. It showed a young woman holding an infant, her face achingly similar to Mama Adana's. 32 years ago, a wealthy family forced a young unmarried mother to give up her newborn son, erasing her from his life completely to protect the family's reputation, Kofi said quietly. That mother has spent 3 decades searching for the child that was stolen from her. Gelani's breath caught. Are you saying? I'm saying Mama Adana isn't just a homeless woman living on the streets, Gelani. She is the biological mother of Obina Cole. The words hit Gelani like a physical blow. The same billionaire who had humiliated him, fired him, destroyed his name across the entire city. His own mother had been starving on the pavement outside his office, and he never once recognized her. "We have to expose this," Gelani said, his voice trembling with a mixture of fury and disbelief. "Carefully," Kofi warned. "Victor Shaw will kill to keep this buried, and Obina himself doesn't know the truth yet. This will destroy him, but it might also be the only thing that saves him." 3 days later, Sterling Horizon Group hosted its 20th anniversary gala, an extravagant celebration filled with champagne, cameras, and the city's wealthiest elite. Obina stood at the podium, beaming with practiced pride, completely unaware that his entire world was about to crumble beneath the weight of a single envelope. Sterling Horizon was built on integrity, family values, and unwavering excellence, Obina announced to thunderous applause. That was the exact moment Kofi Mensah walked through the ballroom doors, Gelani close behind him. "Forgive the interruption," Kofi said loudly, his voice cutting through the celebration, "but there's something everyone in this room deserves to hear." "Security, remove this man immediately," Obina barked, his composure cracking. "Not before you hear the truth about Victor Shaw's embezzlement," Kofi said, raising the documents high enough for cameras to capture. "And not before you hear the truth about your own mother." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Obina's face drained of color. "What did you just say?" Gelani stepped forward, the sealed envelope trembling in his hands. "3 days ago, you fired me for feeding a starving old woman outside this building. That woman's name is Adana. She has spent 32 years searching for a son that was stolen from her at birth. This is absurd. Get him out." "Read it, Obina," Kofi said firmly, placing the documents directly into his hands. "Birth records. A signed confession from your own father. Photographs your family tried to burn." With shaking hands, Obina opened the envelope, his eyes scanning line after line, his breathing growing shallow, his knees nearly buckling beneath him. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "It's not only possible," Kofi said. "It's documented. And Victor Shaw has known for years, using the secret as leverage while quietly draining millions from your company." Chaos erupted. Police, alerted in advance by Kofi, moved swiftly through the crowd, placing handcuffs on Victor Shaw as he attempted to flee through a side exit. "You knew," Obina said, staring at Victor with pure devastation. "You knew my mother was alive this whole time, and you said nothing." "I needed you distracted," Victor spat, struggling against the officers. "A guilty man is an easy man to rob." Obina's entire empire, his pride, his carefully constructed image, all of it shattered in front of hundreds of witnesses and blinking cameras. Then, from the ballroom entrance, frail and trembling, Mama Adana appeared, having been brought there quietly by Zuri at Gelani's request. Obina turned. Their eyes met for the first time in 32 years. "Mama," he whispered, his voice breaking entirely. "My son," Adana said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I never stopped looking for you." The shock proved too much. Adana's legs gave out beneath her, and she collapsed to the marble floor, unconscious. Panic exploded through the ballroom. Outside, thunder cracked violently as rain began pouring in sheets, flooding the streets and slowing every vehicle to a crawl. Obina, frantic, desperate, without a single ally left in a room full of people he once called colleagues, turned to the only person capable of driving through the storm safely. "Gelani, please," Obina begged, his pride completely gone, his voice raw with terror. "I know I don't deserve to ask you anything. But please, help me save my mother." Gelani looked at the man who had destroyed his reputation, stolen his livelihood, and left him with nothing but a promise from a starving old woman. Then he looked at Adana, unconscious on the floor. "Get her in the car," Gelani said without hesitation. "Now." Through flooded streets and blinding rain, Gelani drove faster than he ever had in his life, Obina cradling his mother in the back seat, sobbing apologies she couldn't yet hear. "I'm sorry, Mama, I'm so sorry. Please stay with me," Obina wept. They reached the hospital just in time. Doctors rushed Adana into emergency care while Obina collapsed into a waiting room chair, his entire body shaking. "Why did you help me?" Obina asked quietly, staring at Gelani beside him. "After everything I did to you?" "Because kindness doesn't ask if someone deserves it," Gelani said. "It just answers when it's needed." Months later, Adana had fully recovered, living comfortably for the first time in over 3 decades, finally reunited with the son she never stopped believing she would find. Obina stood before the entire company, humbled beyond recognition. "I once fired a good man for showing compassion I was too proud to understand," he announced publicly. "Today, I'm restoring his name, his position, and placing him in charge of a new foundation dedicated to feeding and housing the forgotten people of this city, people like my mother." Gelani accepted the role with quiet grace, and within the same year, he married Zuri in a small, joyful ceremony surrounded by the community that had never stopped believing in him. Some people measure wealth by money. Others measure it by compassion. In the end, only one of those riches can heal broken families, restore lost hope, and change lives forever. Never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness.